Hey guys, Dan here, and it's Melissa and Tim joining once again for the Wonder Years. Hi guys.
Hi.
How's it going?
Welcome back.
Yeah, this is now season 2. We're gonna bang out hopefully all 6 of these seasons. The new series reboot, of course, is happening, but we're talking about the original McCoy, the real McCoy here, the Wonder Years. This is season 2 now, so this was 1988 to 89. Little recap, if you didn't watch our season 1 video, this is one of my favorites of all time. I love the Wonder Years, grew up with it. Melissa sort of hit or miss, caught her Nick at Night fix with it.
Yeah.
And Tim, a scattered episode maybe here or there.
Not even a full episode.
Not even a full episode. But now you've seen almost
season and a half?
20. Yeah, well, season 1 was only 6 episodes.
And
this was only 17 because of the writer's strike of that year. So
23.
both seasons combined is kind of one season.
It's like one.
Basically, because I think all the other seasons are like 22 or 23 episodes. But unlike the first season where we sort of went episode by episode, obviously we're not going to do that for all 17 of these episodes. So I think we're just going to more kind of talk about our feelings of the season and where these people are, favorite episodes within, etc.
And I feel like this is, like, with the two combined, is a full season because it's not like this is the next year of school. It's like...
Yeah, they're still... Right, you're right. You're right. They're still in the same year.
We're going to end with this.
And I think maybe that's why... Remember when we talked about season 1, I couldn't remember for sure if he was in 6th grade or 7th grade. And I think maybe that's why, because I know there's 6 seasons, so maybe I was combining that
trying to
somehow.
Figure out that. Yeah. We talked about what we said.
We had decided 7.
We had said junior high,
yeah.
so that gives you 7th through 12th,
right.
6 years.
Yeah.
So no, I totally agree.
Right, like Tim said, they're still doing the same school year, but Paul is turning 13, so he had his bar mitzvah in this season. That was a big episode. Kevin gets his first real girlfriend with Becky Slater.
We see
in
a
this
lot.
Season.
I feel like we almost had two different settings going on. You had the middle school drama, and then you had the at-home family episodes. I felt like it was not that there was a ton of crossover. Like there was, a little bit, but it was really one or the other.
Yeah, and in one of the, I watched all the special features on here, but one of the things they interviewed Dan Lauria, who plays the father, and he was like, one of the interesting things about this show was, everybody was in all the opening credits, but you would have like 3 or 4 episodes a season where like Jack episodes and the dad was the focus and his relationship with Kevin or whatever, and then there'd be 10 where he was just sort of in a couple of scenes, and then 10 that he just wasn't even in at all, or maybe like he had one line or something, because it was sort of balanced in a way that like one episode would be more kind of kid focused and maybe a little funnier, and then there would be a more serious one, which typically involved kind of the Arnold household or Karen or, in one of my favorite episodes of the series, which we'll talk about, the parents really are the focal point of the whole show. We see a lot of that, but you're right. Like, it doesn't mix that often where it's like, okay, this is an episode that takes place both at school and at home. It's sort of all one or the other. Like, Winnie, I think, is absent from a handful of these episodes. Danica McKellar absent for 9 episodes.
Did we talk about this last time about how her parents didn't want her?
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. I think with all the different, she's been dating various people. It kind of goes, a couple different people. So I think that it's really pretty, it's very middle school. It's very like the girls and the boys, they're not necessarily all together all the time, especially once somebody breaks off and gets some kind of outsider from the group to date.
Which we see Paul's first girlfriend too.
Mm-hmm.
We see what's her face with the glasses. Perfect couple. I forget what her name is now.
We saw her at the last episode of season 1.
Yeah, but did they get together in that episode?
They danced.
Okay, right. And I actually didn't realize this until I was watching some of the commentaries, but the girl that plays Becky Slater is Danica McKellar's real life sister.
Really?
When they were first casting, they couldn't decide which one they wanted to go with. They decided to go with Danica, but they were like, we kind of like this girl too. And it worked out great because then the mom could be on set for all of the episodes. And they don't look that much alike, so I never even thought of it.
I feel like Danica McKellar has a very distinct look.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't look like every other girl. She doesn't, like, every time he comes back to, oh, Winnie, and like, you feel there's a reason.
And the song, you hear the Winnie song on the guitar.
Yeah, that's true.
Are you sick of that yet, Tim?
No, not really.
Okay.
I'm kind of sick of his wishy-washy ways.
He's a bit wishy-washy. I will admit that. All right, so let's talk about. I want to talk about my favorite episode.
Okay.
Because it's one of my favorite episodes of television. It's one of my favorite half hours that has ever been on the air, and that is Pottery Will Get You Nowhere.
I couldn't figure out if I had seen that before.
That episode just kills me every time. And when I was a kid, I mean, my parents never fought or anything, so it was sort of new kind of territory for me. But I saw it in this, one way, and then over the years, I've probably seen it 5, 6, 7 times by this point. I sort of have this whole different perspective on it now, having been in, relationships and stuff like that. And I think it sort of reminded me of why this was such a good family show for me growing up, is because my parents, I'm sure, got completely other, meanings from what I got out of it.
I have stars next to 4 episodes that are the ones that's one of them.
And that was one of them. Okay, why do you like that one, Tim?
Well, from a character's perspective of Kevin, I feel like he's the smartest in that episode. Like, so I feel like, I'm like, oh yeah, he's figuring stuff out. He sees stuff that his dad can't see, and he's like, just compliment the Pottery, just say it's like, but then Kevin drops the ball later in different episodes. I'm like, why were you so on the on the money in this one episode? But
he was having a good day, I guess.
But then in later episodes, you can't figure out that Winnie's having issues with her parents, like in the barbecue.
Yeah.
It's like, obviously, it's not about you. Like, it's about Winnie.
Well, everything was about him. God bless him.
So good at showing him being flawed.
Yeah.
I
flawed.
I think it was really like, he was not always the. He was like he's the protagonist, but he's not the.
Well, because what 12-year-old is,
well, I know.
And I think that's a huge problem in a lot of shows, is that the kids are either, they're all with their clever comments and pithy comments that kids don't ever say,
right,
or they're trying to get away with something or whatever, and he's just a normal kid.
This is one of the most realistic shows I think I've
for sure.
And I feel like that episode was very realistic of how a lot of parents kind of act with each other, like they don't want to fight in front of the kids, but then eventually sometimes they do, and you're like, what's going on?
My parents had one big fight that was like this, and we were all like sitting outside, like, oh my god, like they're gonna get divorced. Like, we didn't know. We were maybe 10 at the time, but yeah, it was like they were screaming at each other, and it was something innocuous. It was something like the Pottery. It was, I think, a cup had fallen out of the cupboard or something, and it hit my dad in the head, and for some reason he thought my mom threw it at him or something, and so they got into this huge fight. And it was probably before this episode aired, so when I saw this, it really was kind of like, oh yeah, I remember that happening.
And it just, like, for my mom, like, she didn't do pottery, but at one point she got really into, like, long burger baskets, and it was just, like, everything was a long burger basket. It was just, like, we had a popcorn bowl that had a liner that was a long burger basket. It was just, like, there's a lot of long burger baskets in this house. Like, it was just, like, I just felt like every time that there was a new scene, it was like, there's another pottery thing that the mom was like...
the cigarette, the ashtray, and... But what's also interesting about that particular episode is it really is a great showcase for Allie Mills as the mother, because she always, and she said this in interviews too on the DVDs, but she always, that character enjoyed being a mom. She was always very fulfilled by it. That was sort of the era where a lot of women didn't work and whatever. But at some point, the kids are growing up. Everybody's at least in middle school now, if not high school. Like, she wanted something a little bit more, and it was so hard for Jack to figure that out. You know, why do you need more? Where's my Pepsi? I love the "Where's my Pepsi" scene. That when she then mimics him with the Pepsi, so good.
There were so many things that my parents have more of a dynamic like this because my mother didn't really work outside the house. A little in middle school, she was like a little secretary somewhere, but not much at all. Like, and then she only did that maybe a year and then stopped. So I'm very used to this, and I'm also very used to I don't want to say yelling, but like my dad is not a quiet person.
Yeah.
So
your parents got animated.
Yeah, they didn't necessarily fight in front of us, but there would be this like energy, and I could feel it in this episode, and I'd be like, why haven't they learned at this point not to do?
Yeah.
And I was, there were things that I was watching, and I said, am I doing that? Let me, and I was thinking back to my own marriage and being like, okay, what lessons can I learn here? Because it was really, it wasn't, even though it's very comical, it also wasn't played like a farce.
No, not at all. It was very serious. I think it's one of the most serious episodes in the whole season. For sure. And then, did your mom do the Longenberger baskets, or
so my mother had a bunch of them. She didn't. She wasn't like hosting the part. I mean, she hosted one party once, but she wasn't like selling them or anything.
No, my mom didn't sell them either.
Okay,
she just made them.
No, we just had a lot of them.
She just bought them.
She just bought them.
Okay,
yeah, that was the thing that you bought.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was like a basket weaving kit or something.
I actually have now inherited a bunch from. I'll show you later.
Can't wait.
My mom actually went to in Ohio. There is the Longenberger factory.
Whoa!
Go there, and I think you can, like, maybe
make your own
thing,
type of design thing. Your own.
Like, she went there with my sister.
The whole basket thing was huge. I actually took a basket weaving class, and I have all the baskets.
This bypassed me completely.
I don't know. It was like 95-ish, like mid-90s. Okay. You wouldn't have not have cared.
No, I mean I was starting college in '95,
so far away from anything. This was like. This was pre-Pampered Chef, post Tupperware.
Okay, yeah, I remember Tupperware being big in the 80s.
That was what this was.
Okay.
I think my mother more, when she was looking for what's my outlet, she went and learned how to play tennis when I was late in high school.
Okay.
My sister was just out of middle school, so had a little more time on her hands, something to do. And now, still, tennis is...
That's an outlet for her.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. That's good. All right, so Tim, you said you starred 4 episodes. So now I want to hear what the other 3 are that we can discuss in
I also made another mark of my least favorite episode.
Yeah, I want to talk about the least, too.
Okay, so the other ones
because you guys hated the Lisa Berlini episode last season.
I fell asleep during a few.
All right.
So I thought it started off well. I liked episodes 2 and 3. I liked Our Mrs. White, and... That's the play.
Yep.
Where he has a crush on Mrs. White.
Yes. Who appears a few times in this season.
Yeah. And then the third one is the Christmas episode.
Yes.
I thought that was really strong.
I was going to say, I really like that one, too.
Of my favorites.
I liked Mrs. White.
Those are the ones that started strong and then ended
poorly?
No,
those are the 2 that I started. I meant the season started strong.
Oh, yeah.
So... I wasn't a big fan of the first episode. But
what happened in the first one?
That was Heart of Darkness. That's
where he's gonna play the bad boy
with little Breckenmeyer.
With little Breckenmeyer, yes.
Yes.
And like I was like, is that Breckenmeyer? And I had to look it up. I'm like,
and it's funny. Not that we want to, like I said, get involved with every episode, but that episode was definitely a little more surreal, I guess, or
So I thought it was okay. It wasn't like my least favorite episode.
I mean, you talked a little bit about that with the first season, that he had like the dream sequences kind of thing going on.
I did like
Christmas was great,
I liked that episode, the first one. It gave Paul a little bit more character. I was like, okay, I like the fact that we're getting a little bit more Paul.
Okay, I thought of you as I was watching the season, because before we get into the Christmas episode specifically, one of your issues I think with season 1 is Paul was a little bit of a caricature, the nerd, the Millhouse. Okay, but here he does have a few pretty strong episodes. How do you feel about him through the season?
I liked it, like the growth that we're seeing with Paul. I wish there was a little bit more growth with Winnie in the same thing. I feel like Winnie is kind of just
when she was gone for almost half the episodes, though, it is kind of hard.
And I think because it's middle school, right in the middle of middle school, even though they grew up, like, you got your childhood friends, you have this sort of breaking off into two groups, and you've got like the girls and the guys, and so it's going to be harder because Kevin's the lens we're seeing all of this through to really see a lot of Winnie's.
I felt like the last two episodes were a little bit more, gave Winnie a little bit more. That was
that was the dance, the school dance, right?
No, that was the last episode.
Oh, that's right. So Square Dance was third to last. Then Whose Woods Are These? That was a really good one. Tear the Woods Down.
That's the fourth one I starred.
And then the Summer Vacation was when that's when Miss White's gonna get married, and they're doing the barbecue, and Kevin learns about Winnie's parents.
Yes.
Okay.
So Whose Woods Are These is my fourth one that I starred. So Pottery Will Get You Nowhere, Our Mrs. White, Christmas, and then Whose Woods Are These?
Christmas was great. Man, was that a good one.
I just thought the Christmas one was...
if
I had to pick one where it like stood out to me, I think maybe because it did sort of incorporate everybody a little bit more, even though it wasn't so much in... Like, they were in school a little bit. They kept
but full family episode for
Winnie,
sure.
We had everyone in the family.
And everybody had sort of different reasons for wanting the TV, and then a different approach. You see the different siblings at their individual ages, how they sort of attack the problem with the TV.
And it's very relatable of wanting something and like be like, well, you're not going. This is something we're going to get. I mean, they got what?
Yeah, I love the line at the end where he says, "We did get that TV 2 years later."
This is it's not the saccharine and happy ending. How we got the TV?
Right.
Yeah. We got it. We got a color TV. But it was
2 years later.
It was 2 years later.
Yeah, and I certainly can relate to that because we did not have a ton of money growing up. So there were gifts that we wanted, and like one year we got the Nintendo, but that was like everybody's present. That was all three of our presents because it was probably $150 or whatever at the time.
Yeah. So my question to you is: did you all have black and white TV growing up?
Oh my God, yes. We had like 5 TVs in the house because I had a little Watchman that I would have in my room, which is the TV version of the Walkman. Sony made it, and it was little black and white. It was definitely smaller than your laptop screen.
Was it one of those TVs that was kind of like long like this? My dad, I think, had one above his Nordic track.
I would watch it. Okay, I would watch mine in 2 places. I would, if I was doing a puzzle on my floor, I would put it at the head of the puzzle so I could watch it while I was doing it. And then I also had like a TV tray to watch like Letterman before I went to bed.
We're not allowed to have TV in our room.
Yeah, that was the only one. We were just allowed to have a little one. But I had a TV tray that I put it on so I could watch it while I was going to bed. Then I would turn it off.
When I was super young, I think my dad had like a portable black and white TV, but I feel like we always had color TV. But I had a TV in my room, but that was just for using to like play like Nintendo on. And it was like one of those you pull out
black and white.
No, it was color, but it was like one of those pull out the knob things.
Oh yeah,
it had the different knobs on it. Okay, and it was just like really old TV. I was like, okay, this is a Nintendo TV for the room.
I took my black and white to college.
When my first TV,
we didn't have cable in the dorms the first year.
We were not allowed to have TVs in our rooms growing up whatsoever. No,
that was out.
That was absolutely not allowed. So my 18th birthday present was a TV because I'm born in August. My TV to take to college, which I just got rid of. That it had a DVD and a VCR like that could go in, and it was color, and it was a box TV, but it was one of those flat screen box TVs. Like before, after it was a big deal. It was obviously color because I'm much younger, but we did have a black and white TV, our kitchen TV, which had antenna and the 2 dials.
Wow.
Was black and white.
Well, I remember my father, I believe they were only the second, in the 50s, they were only the second family on the block to get a color TV.
Oh, wow.
That was a big, big deal.
So another thing that I liked about the Christmas episode was the fact that, like, one of the things that really stuck out to me was when they're doing the caroling and then it rained.
Yeah.
And it was something like for me, it's something like, okay, as a storyteller, like, obviously that's a big thing that he remembers as a kid growing up from the narrator's perspective.
Right.
And I feel like those are the things that you latch onto, like, when you're going back to, you don't remember what
kind
you
of
get
random,
or what you get.
right.
Like, you remember those random things that, like, oh, yeah, we were caroling in the rain, or it was just, like, we had this one Christmas where, like, my grandma would always be there for us for Christmas, and she would, like, we would, like, give her the ribbons, and she would, like, wrap them up, and, like, and then one year she was in the hospital, and was like, oh, Grandma's not going to be here for Christmas, and was like, and then Christmas morning, we're about to open presents, me and my sister, and my mom gets a phone call, I was like, oh, she can be released, and she was like, okay.
Wow.
It was like,
so Christmas was, like, almost canceled at that point. You were just like, we're going.
It was like, Christmas is on pause.
Oh, wow.
We can go pick up Grandma. And we're like, okay. So we went and go pick up Grandma, and that's one of the Christmases I remember. And even though, like, it put us way behind, and, like, we had a lot of family members coming over for, like, brunch and stuff, and we're still opening presents, and it was just like, it was like,
you make a good point, though. That
memorable.
Having everything be from Kevin's perspective, you know, in the future of his memories, these are all obviously things that this character remembers. They may not even all be what really happened. We don't know. Of course, they're fictional characters anyway, but yeah, it's everything. You're so right. Like, who remembers what they got on a specific Christmas?
Yeah.
I might remember one or two things, but yeah, it's like those sort of side events, or whatever.
And I feel like this episode did a lot better than some episodes. Some episodes you're like, okay, you're not going to remember everything that about this conversation, especially sometimes when Daniel Stern's hopping in every other word or something like that. You're like, you're not remembering this word for word, but I'll let it slide. But that type of situation I really enjoyed.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Before we move on too far, so none of the middle episodes really were that good for you, Tim.
Yeah, well, one of the middle episodes is the one I marked that was my worst episode.
I mean, look, some of them are more, I think, humorous, like the basketball episode, for example. There's no real development there. We see Screech,
I
and that's
feel like I have
we see
watched
Dustin
that.
Diamond.
If I had to pick one episode, I've seen more than any other.
Is that the one that always popped up on Nick at Night for you?
I've seen that so many times. I was like, I can recite this episode.
Right.
I completely forgot Screech was Dustin Diamond was
and he's in a couple of these,
which was kind of surprising. I was like, oh my gosh, there he is. I forgot about that.
And of course, the great Coach Cutlip, we've seen him, you know, before and since.
The basketball episode,
is that your least?
No, it's not my least.
Okay, all right.
I probably enjoyed it for halfway through, and then it kind of just got a little redundant.
Yeah.
And then they
much to do.
And then they threw in like this like Harlem Globetrotters music type of thing. And it was like this like montage of them
being terrible
at basketball, and like after like 30 seconds, you're like, I get the point.
Well,
but they went on for like
what's interesting to me about that episode is, so I've been watching, of course, the Freaks and Geeks we watched last year, me and Joe, and we did episode by episode in-depth reviews or whatever. And then we're 17. And I've also been rewatching My So-Called Life, because my buddy Brittany and I are going to do like a one-season wonder kind of thing. And it's interesting how a lot of these Wonder Years episodes, even though Claire Danes' character is in high school and a bit older than Kevin, a lot of the same themes keep coming up in these episodes that came up in My So-Called Life 8 years later. And then again, this episode specifically, they did an episode of Freaks and Geeks where Bill was annoyed about the unfairness of the picking of the teams. So Coach Biff, whatever his name is, from Back to the Future, Thomas something or other, Tom Wilson, yes, thank you, did the same thing. He was like, okay, well then, you know, you're going to be the captains. It was like, watching this now after rewatching Freaks and Geeks, I was like, wow, that is almost the same thing.
So I think what we can grab from that is, think about when all these are being written, which is sort of a certain time period. You've got the writers who are of a certain age,
then grow up,
and then this is what they remember, even if that's not necessarily happening in that time period. And those, so the ones you mostly spoke about were period pieces, not My So-Called Life, but the other two.
But Freaks and Geeks is about 20 years past. This is about 20 years past.
They are, because these are, as a teacher or as a former teacher, that's a practice that is like, I don't do the okay. We're gonna pick teams now.
Well, when I was growing up, we sure did in gym class.
That is definitely not something like especially in gym class. I would never anything where it's gonna be some kind of skill. If it's just for fun, okay, pick your friends, bunch of little groups.
Yeah.
But 2 captains and picking people, I would never.
We did that all the time, and I was always one of the last picked, and that's fine.
I think we usually counted off. It was like make a line, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
You know what? When I got older, I think like junior, senior of high school, maybe we did more of that. It was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and then you'd be on those teams.
Yeah.
But when I did those Freaks and Geeks reviews, it's very traumatic. I hated it. But when we did those Freaks and Geeks reviews, I kept saying like, this is just like Wonder Years, and Joe hadn't seen Wonder Years either. But that's I think why Freaks and Geeks maybe is so authentic, because those people probably watched these episodes of Wonder Years and were like, that's how to do a middle school, a high school show. So yes, the Lose Yours episode is not great, but I do think it's an interesting conversation piece.
Though,
yes,
I do feel like it's relatable. I did like the dynamic of Kevin with
Dustin Diamond.
Not
Screech, good old Screech.
But with Paul. With Paul. I felt like that gave him a little bit more dynamic in their friendship. I thought that was great.
Yeah, because they had that big fight in the episode.
I just felt like it just kind of lost steam a little bit.
Okay.
Like they were...
I feel like it also gave
it was a little redeeming
qualities too, though.
Kevin.
Because we've seen Kevin kind of blunder his way through a few episodes, and I really wanted him to have obviously not a win, because again the episode is losers.
We gotta be real.
It's not a win, but one of those moral wins, redeem himself, and
I think the good thing about Kevin is he does usually, when he messes something up or when he blunders, I think usually he does at least try and redeem himself. Now the episode is this season the episode with the gossip?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That
was.
So I said to you guys, I think off air, I already saw season 3, so some of these
just between you and me
and Carla and Paul, Paul and Carla, whatever. Okay, so this is one right before Pottery. Yeah. So that was he really, was kind of a jerk in that, but at the same time, who hasn't sort of gossiped about friends or whatever? And maybe said things that you wouldn't want the other person to hear, especially at, age 12 or whatever. I mean, that's such a classic. And he had his first girlfriend at the time, so he was trying to make her laugh and all of that stuff. But I thought that's a good one too.
But I feel like it's just like it was.
Was it too much?
Well, I felt it was too much after the previous episode where he was just like. The previous episode was when he was pining for Winnie, and then she started dating the one guy, and then he was just like, "Fine, I'm just going to axe out what's her name, Becky Slater."
Becky Slater, yeah.
Sick of these.
So
I was sick of these love
season
stories.
2, it really has a lot of that. I can't deny that.
I felt like it would have been better if it wasn't the following episode.
Right.
Like if he had been with Becky for a little bit to show that he,
longer.
Like he actually cared for her, and then it would have made a little bit more sense when they followed back around.
Yeah, it was a little quick, and I don't know how much of that was
when Becky was using that
because of the writer's strike, and maybe it would have been stretched. Maybe the relationship would have been stretched out a little bit.
So like when Becky came back around as his nemesis for the next episode, and it was like using all that information. They said, because that the information in the gossip episode wasn't actually that episode that we're talking about. Like it was.
Oh, that's right.
This was a threat.
That's
this whole
right.
Thing was I was surprised.
Okay, that's right.
That's when he's like figuring out that he actually doesn't like Becky.
Right.
And he's trying to the guy that Winnie was seeing. They kind of broke up, and then he was like, "Oh wow, I might have a chance with Winnie." You're in a somewhat happy relationship with Becky,
he only forced himself to be happy.
Think about these middle school relationships. I technically had one boyfriend in middle school, and I believe the extent of the relationship was walking me to class.
Yeah, I mean, I had relationships in middle school, and I don't even think I kissed any of them.
I think
we maybe held hands a little bit,
playing spin the bottle. It wasn't.
Yeah, I did kiss somebody at Spin the Bottle, Denise West. Shout out. 6th grade. But yeah, I didn't get like a girlfriend kiss until 11th grade, I want to say.
I'm not going to say mine unless everybody
Well,
does,
all right,
because...
you're fine. You were a late bloomer in that regard, and we understand.
Thank you.
All right, so what is your other... I guess we talked about all your majors except for the ones at the end of the...
Yeah. So
let's talk about the other favorites before we get to your worst, because I'm curious.
The other favorite is Whose Woods Are These? I just felt like the last 2 episodes were kind of a good send-off point, but I did like the second last episode.
Let me tell you about Whose Woods Are These. My dad, this is why this show was so good for us. The Springfield Mall, where I grew up, they tore down woods to put that mall up. My dad played in those woods when he was younger. He refused for like a decade, apparently, before I was born, to go to that mall because he was so incensed that they tore up his woods to build a shopping center. So this episode always, and I knew that story before I ever saw this episode, or maybe we watched this episode and that's how I found out the story. But yeah, this one always spoke to me too because it was interesting how they were sort of not being friendly at that point in time, but they banded together for that.
I like that. I mean, I haven't had the experience where the woods that I played in got torn down yet because they're behind our elementary school that I like. So they're kind of like
they can't tear those down.
They can't tear those down. But I remember playing in the woods and doing those things.
Oh yeah, we used to play in the woods all the time when I was a kid.
I just love the line where like Kevin comes in to his parents like they're tearing down Harper's Woods?
Harper's Woods, yeah.
And then like their parents were like
they just don't care.
No, they were like
they knew.
Like,
oh right, that's right.
They're like yeah. That building a shopping center. And he's just like what?
Nobody told me.
And you're okay with this?
Yeah,
like right. Yeah, that is definitely a good one.
So I like that.
Okay.
I liked that too. The whole nobody told me.
Yeah.
I feel like still as a child, things will come up and be like, wait, why?
Oh, and I'm the last to know in my family.
Why didn't you tell me?
Because I live the furthest away.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah.
Well, no one told me. And then
that's a classic.
I liked how they were like, well, at least it's going to get turned down. Like, at least we're going to go off and just play hide and seek one last time. And like,
that was pretty fun.
So,
Well, it's kind of like the episode, I think it was in the first season, where they just went on the swings at the end and sort of wanted swingers and wanted, just to be kids again.
Yeah.
All right, so how I'm spending my summer vacation, that was the final episode of the season.
I thought it was okay.
But you started this.
It's a great setup.
What
for the next?
No,
season.
I started who's.
Okay.
I just thought that Winnie's storyline in the last 2 episodes was stronger. Than in the previous.
She definitely had a nice arc there. Some good acting.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was good for Winnie's story. These last 2 episodes, where in the future was in the previous episodes, it was just. She was just kind of there, didn't know what she wanted.
Listen, these kids are naturals with the acting.
Yeah.
Oh, this is...
and I agree,
again,
Paul was a little more one note. Yeah. As we're getting, further in, we get more, but...
Like,
you feel like you're watching a documentary.
I feel like I feel like I'm watching somebody's life. I don't feel like I'm watching... Like, when... This is going to sound horrible... and I'm not insulting the show, but I only watched 1 season of it because I couldn't stand it. But Fuller House on Netflix, which...
Didn't watch any of it.
I didn't watch 1 second, and I hate the original, but that's fine.
I was... demographic.
Yes, you were in the right demo.
I was a
Tim's
little
a big
girl.
fan of the original.
I mean, I liked it.
Cut it out.
I liked it. I was a big Dave Coulier fan. My favorite show on Nickelodeon was Out of Control.
I was going to say, I like Dave Coulier from Out of Control.
I loved Out of Control.
That's a different
I've actually seen him do stand-up as an adult.
Oh, thank God.
So, whatever. But I do feel like watching those children and watching this, like, I'm like, it's just so... forced.
Well, I think that's what always made Roseanne.
Yes.
You and I are huge Roseanne fans. I think that's something that always made Roseanne stick out is that Sarah Gilbert, and Lisa Goranson, Michael Fishman not so much, but as a kid he was fine.
He was fine.
But compared to the other shows of the day, like Who's the Boss and Growing Pains, where the kids were just terrible actors. God bless you, Alyssa Milano. But, Family Ties, was okay because Justine Bateman and Michael J. Fox were great, but then Tina Yothers was horrible. So, yeah, this is a show where everybody's good.
I don't feel like I'm watching a show.
Not
I
at
want
all.
that. I don't want to feel
and even the side
like
characters,
I'm watching a
even
show.
your Dustin Diamonds, And Breckin Myers, you know, were really good here. So I agree with that. What is, Tim, your least? What is the number one worst? I can't quite figure it out from. Let's see. Is it the one? The bar mitzvah one was good.
I liked the bar mitzvah.
It's not that one, Tim. I know that.
I felt like that was very interesting.
Was it Nemesis? Was it the gossip comes out on him?
No.
Oh, Walkout. It can't be Walkout. No. I love Walkout.
Walkout was great.
Yeah, that was really good.
I
liked Walkout. I
social things coming back.
I didn't like the fact.
A lot of social commentary.
I know. I like the social commentary.
Yeah.
I just wish they went with the fact that like he actually decided to go and start the walkout and not just go to the bathroom and accidentally start the walkout.
But in Kevin's character, doesn't that make more sense? Doesn't it make more sense that he would kind of wuss out at the end of the day?
Right. It makes sense, but like, so my problem with the show in general is that I haven't watched this as a kid. I've never watched it as when I was his age. So for me,
so you're having trouble relating, maybe to some
having trouble relating and being frustrated as an adult with his decisions. I feel like it would be the same thing.
And I think that's fair.
Yeah, it would be the same thing if I went back and watched Boy Meets World, which was something like
that was your era. Sure.
That was my era, and that was my age. Yeah. And I can look back and I'm like, Corey Matthews made horrible decisions all the time. And I imagine if I was watching it now, I would be frustrated with his decisions. Yeah. So I have to kind of get over that a little bit, but I kind of wanted him to have a hero moment, and he just kind of didn't.
No, but like because of him going to the bathroom, it actually did sort of spark everybody to do it.
I think his hero moments are realistic throughout the season. Though. Like,
you
how
get
many
some...
people really get those like, oh, I made the winning basket. Like, he's like.
That to me is more like Cosby Show. Like Theo, makes the team, and this person does this, and that was more. Obviously, we can't watch it the same today, but that was more of like a sort of rose-colored glasses look at childhood.
Yes,
kids were funny for sure,
but they always sort of came out on top.
Right. At the end of the day, everybody was fine. Here we're seeing episode by episode arcs of like fighting with Paul and whatever. All right, so let's see. Is it the episode where they murder the gerbil or whatever it was, the rat?
That was hard.
I mean, it was hard, what
an episode for the brothers, though.
That's
man,
that's the saving grace of that episode. Yeah. If it didn't have the brothers dynamic, I feel like it would have been
end scene where they're where he's walking and they meet up. Man, that is because that whole episode you just want to punch Wayne in the face
the whole time.
But you also kind of feel sorry for him when he's
because Juliette Lewis is standing him up.
Yeah. No, it is the episode after that. It is Coda.
Okay, what happens in Coda?
That's the piano
episode.
Oh, I took piano in school. This one spoke to me.
This
spoke to me like gangbusters. That little jerky kid that was so perfect. What was it? Did they say his name? Ronald Hirschmuller.
Yeah.
You didn't take any instrument lessons?
we had a piano in our house because my sister took piano lessons.
Okay.
But, it just, I don't know.
I wonder if this episode would speak differently to your sister than it did to you.
Maybe.
Did you take lessons?
So I did. My sister started at age 5.
Okay.
I didn't start until like age 12 because I was jealous.
Okay.
Because she had been taking them at this point for 4 years or something like that. My best friend took them as well.
Yeah.
They would go to I'd have to go sit there at the recital.
Awful.
And I was like,
torture.
well, I want to, maybe I'll do this too. I have no ear for music. I read music very poorly, I'm counting where things go. I have tried so many instruments.
Wow.
I tried the violin, I tried the clarinet, I tried the piano, which is probably the farthest I ever got. I did play in the handbell choir, which you don't have to do much reading of the music.
That's pretty hot. That's good. I
rhythm,
like a handbell choir.
Yeah, I liked that. I've taken singing lessons, horrendous.
I would get lost when we had like things. I was like, "Where are we?" And they're like, 56. I was like, "Okay."
Oh wow! I wasn't doing that.
I did piano for probably 5 or 6 years. I started maybe at 3 or 4, and I did it till I was probably 8.
Okay.
And then I did guitar when I was starting in 7th grade, so probably 11 or 12, and did that. Took lessons for maybe 3 years, but played guitar all through school. And I could read music from piano. I remembered enough of it to kind of get by in guitar, but definitely needed more practicing. But I was a lot like Kevin. Like, I did practice the piano a lot, but guitar lessons, I practiced a little bit, very minimally,
yeah, they had to
and it showed. Like, I wasn't that good.
I was not good.
I was good
I
at
never
piano.
wanted to do it. I didn't want to practice. I wanted to just be able to sit and play.
You wanted to do it.
I wanted to play things that I knew what the song was, which is why the singing was better, because
you knew the song.
If you knew the song, you could probably just do it.
But I think that's what this episode speaks to, is that idea that kids have of, I want to sit down and just do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to do the scales, the practices, the finger books. I don't want to do any of that. I just want to sit down and be able to play like freaking Ray Charles or Bruce Hornsby or whoever it is. And you just can't. It's frustrating. And kids have trouble understanding that. And I think that this episode, I think you should tell your sister about this episode, Tim, and see what she says. I thought this was a great one.
I liked it. It was a little heartbreaking for me because this is the one where I really wanted him
to have a hero moment.
to have the hero moment.
Another loss for Kevin.
To at least go to the recital and play it.
That always made me sad. That was one of his decisions I always was mad at.
That's probably another reason why I didn't like it. I didn't like his decision. He quit. He didn't even try. Like,
I just want him to at least get through that.
For me, like, I didn't have that, like, the piano type of experience. Like, I had different experiences where, like, I actually had to keep trying to get better at something. So I was just like, for me, I was like, just keep trying, man. Like,
see, you had the perseverance.
I had the perseverance because, like, I mean,
painting. You're a very good painter. That obviously doesn't come overnight.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, like, it wasn't like a hobby, but like I had a speech impairment that I had to keep trying.
I went to speech class when I was a kid.
So, like,
for sure.
I mean, all through elementary school, I had speech classes.
Yeah.
So there's like, just keep trying. And then when I was in high school, my buddy signed me up for cross country, and I was horrible at it, and I just kept going. I got better on the team. I mean, I didn't get amazing and didn't like or anything, but I at least.
But you practiced, and you got better.
Yeah,
not professional level, but you were very good.
I tend not to like things that I'm not necessarily at least a little good at.
Yeah, that's why I am now.
I have a really hard time with it. Even like I can go all these different things. Like I'm looking back and being like, yeah, you weren't necessarily good at that, and then you kind of stopped. The only thing
Are you a little bit of a Sue Heck from the middle? You try your hand at everything.
Well, no, not like Sue Heck does.
Okay.
Because Sue Heck wants to be.
God bless her heart.
Like she wants to be in all of it, and she's gonna try all of it.
Yes.
It wasn't that.
The middle season's coming soon on Dan Reviews it, I'm sure. Because
I
love watching the middle.
I love the middle.
And Tim hasn't watched it, so it's another triumvirate here. Okay.
No, I think the only thing I had that with was swimming. That was the one thing my parents wouldn't let us stop doing. You had to swim in the summer, and you were supposed to do one other like physical sport.
We swam in the summer, but we were just pool rats. We just went.
You had to be on
we
the
weren't
team.
on a team. We just swam.
You had to be like from age 8 to 18. I was on the swim team every summer. And I was not good at it when I started. I wore nose plugs. I couldn't breathe out of my nose. I kept getting most improved because they would take your time at the beginning of the summer and then at the end, and I would make progress.
And every year you were the most improved.
Not every. I did it 4 years out of 10.
That's
but
good.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It was not something
half.
everybody got to do.
Yeah.
I wish I had the perseverance, and so I'm sad for him. But I also would have had the parents who would have been like, no, you're going to this recital. I paid for these lessons.
Right.
We're going to at least finish out this session of it.
I think that's how my parents were. Like, as long as they were paying for it, we at least had to do the year. But then every year was something different. Like in high school, I ended up being on the bowling team. So that was sort of the thing we did. And then, my brothers played tennis. Well, my one brother did both tennis and bowling, but he was also a swimmer. He was the athlete in the family. But yeah, I guess we were always doing something, but if we decided we didn't want to do that one thing, we could pick something else.
Right.
Yeah, and like, I mean, I had other things, like, I had T-ball, and like, but at least I wasn't good at it, but, and the progress from going T-ball to Little League is, like, they take away the T, and you have to, like,
try. You
have
to actually hit
and
it.
Then if you don't get in a couple pitches, they bring out the T again, and they always had to bring out the T again.
That's embarrassing,
and
too.
I was like, and then so, but I at least finish out the season,
right?
And then my dad was like, "You want to do Little League?" I'm like, I don't think I don't have. But I mean, I tried. I tried practicing. My dad had like a practice thing for me set up, and but I just wasn't good at it. So I mean, I understand, but I feel like he needed to go to that concert.
I know. God, it was so heartbreaking to hear.
Even if he was
terrible.
bad and made a couple mistakes, I feel like that's probably why that's my least favorite.
Compared to Ronald
like
Hirschmuller,
a few more years than he did too.
But what
I did softball 3 years, terrible right field.
Yeah,
but like
I did like I did a couple years of Little League. I mean, I like
What I love though about that whole the thing with the teacher is when she tells him that like Ronald Hirschmuller really stinks in the realm of like having a personality and like everything's just there's no feeling with his playing. I thought that was such a good point she made, and yes, it made me hope that he was going to go.
I've had these conversations with my students.
Maxine Stewart, I don't know her, but she was great.
Where I've said, no, you're good at this. I know you don't like necessarily have the best grades, or you're good at this. You have a talent for having the conversation, or you have the talent for doing this.
We've all worked with kids. I mean, you do the church group. I did the YMCA for a while. At that age, it's so important to let them know it's okay to not be that great, whatever. And so, that was
my students are the same way. They want to be able to just speak
to
Spanish
do it immediately. Right.
And then, because I watched this a couple weeks ago, I had to go back and look at all the episodes, and I was like, oh yeah, I completely forgot.
You forgot about the piano one. Okay.
I forgot about that episode, so that's why I marked it as my least favorite.
All right, and that's fair. So we had we talked briefly about the Rat episode where him and Wayne, have this nice connection. What about Brightwing, where he and Karen finally? It's really one of their only episodes together because she leaves the house very soon after this season.
It was very interesting. I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But. It sounds like there's a butt
I just
coming.
don't feel like it was one of my favorites.
No, it's a forgettable episode.
Yeah.
But I do like that they gave him and Karen at least one kind of episode. I think this is one of the sort of more amusing episodes, though, when he keeps going into the high school and seeing that guy at the lockers every day who turns out to be like the guidance counselor or something. I just wanted to throw that out there because we didn't really talk about Karen at all.
Yeah.
No,
I did like the fact that he was struggling with it at one point, and at the end, when she ran away, but then it was very, very emotional payoff when she came back and she's with her parents.
Another great Jack and Norma
I
moment.
messed up, a type of thing.
Yeah,
I feel like there was also a lot of filler in this episode, though. There was all that montage of being at the
the hippies,
and what are the hippies doing?
Yeah.
So
you can certainly tell in this episode what the 3 minutes were they cut out for syndication. I mean, I'm sure that whole montage they just
I feel like the middle was just the middle of that episode was just like Losers, where it was just it was a filler,
the little montage.
But I like the ending of Brightwing.
Yeah. Same as the Rat episode, though. That ending, the closure with
a gerbil, not a rat.
A gerbil, okay.
Was it a hamster?
No, I don't. Was it a hamster?
Hamster.
Maybe we're all wrong. Was it a hamster?
I know it wasn't a rat.
Okay,
it was not a rat. It was too small for that.
Yeah. Okay. You know me and animals.
Yeah.
That was
hamster. All right. Well, there we go. Now we know. Good job. All right. Well, so before we wrap up, and we talked sort of briefly about the things
with Brightwing, it reminded me of because growing up with landlines and type of thing, not cell phones. It definitely reminded me of when the parents are calling everybody and trying to find out where you are.
Yeah,
I was I can totally relate to that because, and even as a kid, trying to call and get a hold of someone, type of thing. Now this day and age is.
Yeah, my little brother didn't come home from school one day for hours, and my parents thought he was like dead or something.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see as like what other kinds of that is no longer an issue.
Yeah.
But what other issues do we have instead? You know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
Now you can track the kid's phone.
Yeah, find the phone.
Right.
Then who's your kid talking to on the internet? Like all of these, all back and forth.
I like that aspect of Bright Ring as well.
Okay. So some of the interesting items of note in the special features on this included a 40-minute interview with good old Daniel Stern.
I love it.
Which was really interesting because, first of all, did you guys pick up when they in the credits it would say David M. Stern? And I always wondered if that was some relation. He, I think, wrote a lot of the episodes or directed maybe. Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, Daniel Stern directed that one himself. But yeah, David M. Stern wrote some of these episodes or story by, and that's his brother.
Okay.
And he got him the job. They had sort of worked together on some other things, but so apparently, I think we talked about this a little bit in episode 1 that he wasn't the first narrator. It was the guy that later was on the Ellen sitcom. But what I didn't know that I've learned in this interview was they actually were set to go with this other guy, and they were and he and Daniel Stern are friends or whatever, no hard feelings. Daniel Stern couldn't do it because he was shooting some movie or something, and somehow that fell through. But they had a few episodes recorded already with the other guy, and they just scrapped him. They were like, forget it, we're going back to Daniel Stern.
Wow.
And he put in his contract, which is, I think, ballsy for a up-and-comer, he put in his contract that he needed to direct at least one episode per season. Because he wanted to sort of direct. Yeah, because he wanted sort of that feeling. And he said it was interesting because those were the only episodes where he really actually worked with the cast. Every other episode, he was just in a booth, came in, did his lines, and whatever. But they would have him do his lines both before they shot the episode, and then they would have him redo half of them after the episode so he could play off of what Kevin's facial expression was or whatever. So I thought that was interesting too.
That's really smart.
Did they want it before because they wanted that audio?
Yeah, I think...
Did they play that audio on set?
They didn't say that, but that was sort of my understanding. My impression when he said that was okay, so they must have been playing it back while they were shooting the scene or whatever.
And that gives them something to play off of
as
well.
Yeah.
To make sure that it fits in there.
Right.
The timing is right. So it makes sense. And then you could change your delivery slightly. Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. But yeah, if you're a Daniel Stern fan, I mean, it's a great interview to watch.
Yeah. And I think maybe he also just wanted to be more involved in the show because he's like, if I'm just
with the directing,
if I'm just doing the voice and, and I'm never on set, I don't get to kind of feel. So maybe it was just more of that.
Yeah, that could be.
Well, I feel also would give you a way to be way more into the character.
Yeah, right.
Because if you think about young Sheldon with
Jim Parsons
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
He's already played this character.
Yes.
He knows
that's
all
true.
of
It's
the
a little
ins and
interesting.
outs and the nuances and the quirks and tics.
Yeah.
Whereas he doesn't necessarily have that history of playing anything before.
Yeah, usually I guess it is more this way. I think about, Patton Oswalt's doing the older version of the Goldbergs, or, I'm trying to think of other examples. But Bob Saget doing How I Met Your Mother. Of course, he was already an adult. I don't understand that, but whatever. But yeah, most of the time, and they tried that with Mixed-ish. They had Tracy Ellis Ross doing the voiceover for. I know that wasn't one of your shows, but
Blackish was. And I just was like, "This is too many."
Blackish is too much. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting that they had him record it and then sort of re-record a lot of it to sort of play off of people. But yeah, so he ended up directing, I guess, a handful of episodes as the series went on. But one thing he mentioned was that people would come in and direct and not quite understand that either the show was from Kevin's perspective, so you had to shoot things a little bit differently. And he was as somebody who had all the scripts and knew the ins and outs of the characters, it was real easy for me to just kind of slide in there and do that.
It always makes me, so in general, all sitcoms, and I've been listening to some of the Office Ladies podcast, and they bring on a lot of the directors to speak. Yeah. The director always in theater at least, seems like such a pivotal person to how everything's going to turn out. And when it's so many different directors in a sitcom, because you don't have one director almost ever. I don't know.
The only example I know is Will and Grace. James Burrows directed every episode.
Okay.
God bless him.
I was like, James Burrows is the only person I can think of who has at least a
and he directed almost all of the Cheers, I think. But yeah,
because that's the only person I was thinking of.
And maybe back in the day, Gary Marshall I know did most of the Happy Days and Odd Couple and stuff. But yeah, I didn't notice that until I started doing the Roseanne episode by episode.
And it's crazy.
Every episode of Roseanne, or The Connors, I guess now, is directed by somebody completely different. And maybe they'll do 2 in a season. Maybe.
I feel like it's...
Fred Savage actually directed a couple of
jump
Connors.
In, especially when you don't know all the history.
Think,
sometimes they don't.
Like, from my understanding is that usually the person who directs the pilot episode kind of...
Like oversees everything.
Well, they might kind of set the template of how to do stuff.
How it is.
Like, because I remember watching, listening to the commentary of Pushing Daisies, which is one of my favorite shows.
Yeah,
that's a great show.
I think it's Barry Levinstein directed the first.
Oh, okay, that wouldn't
episode.
surprise me. Yeah, Barry Levinstein.
But his use of color and certain things like that, everybody's like, "This is the template. This is what we're doing," and then it kind of
sets the tone.
Sets the tone, and then the directors are just kind of don't have to worry about that as much.
Right.
But I mean, you also probably have the same cinematographers and type of stuff.
Yeah, the same crew, I guess.
So you're just trying to get different emotions from the.
But I feel like that was much more common, back in the day.
Like
when I think about having one person, like when I think about the Dick Van Dyke Show, I feel like Jerry Parrish directed almost all of those episodes, and I just feel like maybe, I don't know what changed. Maybe there's so many shows now. Directors are
I think you're just busier because there's just so many more opportunities. Remember, you only had how many channels?
Right.
You only had so many,
And it's not something I ever thought of until Sean Hayes, I heard in an interview, say that James Burrows directed every episode of our show, and that's the only show he ever did every episode for. And I was just like, wait, doesn't he direct all the episodes of all the shows that he does? And he doesn't. Chuck Lorre, same thing. He probably directs half the first season and then just hands it off to somebody else.
But I mean, it also helps that usually you have the same writers and it might have the different written by thing, but usually you have a writer's room.
Right.
Right.
And then...
Which I didn't understand for a long time either.
Writers.
Yeah.
And it's okay, these people are being in charge of this episode.
But one person's
you kind of bounce it off of everybody else. We need a line here or something like that. So if you have the script, you have the same actors.
Yeah.
I mean...
And I wonder if that's more of a writer's guild thing.
Do you really need the same director to get the same emotion?
I guess not.
Yeah, I guess not.
You can be a little bit more experimental with
early on,
stuff.
though, I don't know.
Yeah.
Season 5, 6, 7 of a show, sure, that just coasts on its own. But yeah, this early on, that is kind of odd, I feel like. Yeah. But maybe back in the 80s,
we're also talking about a show that has you can just jump in and watch an episode, and you don't really need to go.
This is not an overarching. Yeah.
So when you have something where it's overarching, Lost, it's how do they do this with a different director each time or something like that? Usually they had a rotation of different directors.
Right.
I think, and I think what you were talking about with an arc versus these,
sort of
standalone episodes. I feel like this show, I like these standalone episodes more than I like their arc episodes. We have.
But it's interesting because
there's some arc, but
it's interesting because when we talked about season 1, you guys both said you had sort of trouble binging it because it's not necessarily made for binging. It's sort of all pick and choose your episodes.
I don't want to say I had a hard time. I did both seasons in one.
You actually binged a lot for season 2.
Because I want to.
Season 1,
I want to watch. I pick this up when it's.
There's only really. There's 2 arcs in this. You have the Winnie arc.
Yep.
He's pining for Winnie the whole time, and then you have
him and Paul friendship.
No.
Okay.
Becky Slater.
And Becky Slater, okay. In this particular season, yes.
But
I think that's the whole. That's the romance.
The romance arc.
I think there's a romance arc, and I think maybe there's some sort of Karen versus parents kind of arc throughout as a C story.
If you'd have to start from season 1 though. With
that's true. I guess that's true.
Karen in this season.
You kind of get it though. Any particular Karen episode, you kind of get their relationship.
Oh yes,
so
yes.
yeah, that's true.
Exactly
you don't really need the arc for that.
I would just consider them 2 different arcs, just because, like, you have those 2 episodes with Becky Slater, and you think it's done, and then she comes back around for a 3rd episode, and it's just like kind of like ends it, and like I mean, I guess
and then we pick up with the Winnie piece.
Yeah, I feel like it's.
But she does also appear in subsequent seasons.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's the romance arc. I call it the romance arc.
I feel like
personally.
yes, okay, it's a romance arc with like a minor arc inside of a bigger arc.
I fell asleep.
It's like it's like a rainbow. There's different layers of the
arc. All right. Then the only thing we didn't really cover is that Ben Stein is in this show.
Oh yeah.
And
as Ben Stein.
Talk about the song.
The horrible Hulu version of the song.
I like Ben Stein.
He's doing the Ben Stein bit.
Yep.
They obviously got him from Ferris Bueller. They said, just do the thing he did in Ferris Bueller. It'll be funny.
But he does that in a bunch of things. That's his shtick.
That's his shtick.
Except for when Ben Stein's
I was going to say, and that's when he's himself.
I love that show.
So this is the character. This is the Ben Stein bit.
Yes, this is the bit. I'm fine with it.
But I love how they always incorporate whatever he's talking about with what's going on in Kevin's life.
I do like that.
You know, the Pottery episode was the first time we saw him, which of course is the best episode. And I
think he also in the gerbil episode?
I think he was.
I think the hamster episode.
I was very confused. I'm still very confused about who is teaching, what is he teaching, why are we doing like science and social studies?
He's teaching science, I think.
But then they called him the social studies teacher. I don't understand what
maybe
his role
in the 60s
is.
it was different.
I need to understand.
You have to research that.
I gotta figure this out a little more.
Maybe they taught 2 subjects. I mean,
could be.
It could be. It was very.
Usually,
that could be.
You know how you don't have that, but I mean,
sometimes it was.
Maybe back in the 60s.
I think it was more. Kevin says social studies class, and I guess social studies can be social aspects of things, but they were talking about things that I would have clearly thought were science class things. Which I think was
like the volcanoes and stuff like that. So. One more thing I want to point out before we get to the theme song. Is that one other thing I learned in these interviews. So I always knew that the attention to detail with like the set pieces and that kind of thing were pretty spot on. But Dan Lauria, who plays Jack, the father, was in Vietnam. So he brought a lot of his Vietnam expertise to a lot of these different sort of things that they're talking about. But whenever they're watching TV, even if it's just in the background of a scene, he made sure with the writers and the director that whatever scene they were showing, whatever news story they were showing, was from that exact like week or whatever in Kevin's life. Like if it's in the summer of 68 or wherever they're supposed to be 69, he made sure. Oh well, they weren't there until 70, yet. So we can't run that. So even though nobody really was paying attention, it was before you like had your DVR where you could rewind something or whatever. Like they made sure it was that meticulous. So
I wouldn't have
one
noticed
other point of pride of this show.
I wouldn't have lived.
I never would have known.
But I have noticed things like that in other shows and said, "Ooh, this shouldn't or should whatever." And so I appreciate.
Well, and Freaks and Geeks was always great with that too. Yeah. Like Freaks and Geeks, if they were listening to something on the radio, like it was hot on the radio that time at that point. And all the if they were going to the movies, it was something that was literally playing that particular month of that year. Yeah.
The Goldbergs do not do that.
Well, the Goldbergs' whole plot schematic is that it's, and that's why he says at the beginning 1980 something.
Yes.
Which I have a couple of friends that they can't watch the Goldbergs because it's so all over the place and inaccurate.
I did it for
I
a
just
couple
gave
years.
up
I
with
gave up
it.
on it. Yeah.
Or, I mean, I still watch the show, but I mean, I gave up on caring that. Okay, this song was out in 89 and this movie was out in 83 and they're still doing it, but whatever. I sort of,
So I only watched the first couple episodes of that movie.
It does get frustrating.
I really wanted to go back and watch it, and I think I will. But
they're running a bit thin with the plots, but that's all right.
I think this goes back to how much does Kevin really remember of the...
Right,
You can play with the...
Yeah, that's true. You can play a little bit with that. Yeah, that's true.
Some people don't. Some people are like way off on their timeline.
They know it was part of their childhood, but they have no sense of time frame. All right, so the horrible theme song. So I've been giving Tim these great DVDs from the Time Life collection, with all the original music, except for I was not done with watching the special features for the last 2 episodes of season 2. So you had to watch on Hulu, which is how you're watching it. And the theme, the Little Help from My Friends, is such an inferior quality. It's so bad, right?
It's so jarring.
And you don't know the difference.
So I don't know the difference, but I had watched it in syndication.
Right.
So which I assume
years ago,
which I assume he was using the original, not.
I believe Nick at Night always uses the original product.
And so I was intrigued and went to try to figure this out.
Okay.
And so I was trying to play Hulu and watch a YouTube and play them at the same time to see if I could get them to like sync up. There's different speeds, aren't they?
Yes.
And
the Hulu one is a little faster, I believe.
Oh, really? Because I thought it was the other
slow.
one.
Maybe it is.
I thought it was like much slower.
Okay, maybe
and
it
I
is.
was annoyed.
Well, all I know is when we were figuring it out, Tim, and I was like, well, let me see if Hulu has the original music. You could just watch it on there. I played that for about 2 seconds. I said, Tim, I got to give you the DVDs.
Yeah.
So it's obvious right away.
It's jarring.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I was like, oh, okay. And it's like after watching.
Yeah,
15 episodes like with the the original.
And you're not like a music aficionado. No. You don't care Joe Cocker or anything.
I could care less.
You could care less.
But
they're clearly different versions.
And then you have a second one. It's like,
it doesn't necessarily bother me because I do probably know what the original song is because I listened to a lot of this music. This is what my parents had on until I was about 10. I only listened to oldies.
Right.
I didn't listen to anything current.
I was about the same until about 10 or 11.
Yeah. Basically middle school happened and whatever everyone else. I was the oldest. That was why.
Right.
My sister listened to whatever I listened to. Yeah. So, I do notice where I'm like, that doesn't sound like what the original something else, not the theme song, but it doesn't bother me. Like, it seems like we're not choosing different songs. It's just who is.
Sometimes they're just different covers. Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I'm not.
And for me, music is such an important part of this show and its legacy. I can't recommend people watching this on Hulu. Watch, or if you do, just do they do skip intro on Hulu like they do on Netflix? Because if they do, you can just skip the intro.
I do skip intro, so I'm not sure if I actually am skipping it or if I'm just moving ahead about a minute because I'm over it. It's not it doesn't have any.
I always watch the intro.
I'm pretty sure it doesn't have any. Well, I do when I know that there are like intros change.
Yeah.
I don't think this will change.
Well, no. You're wrong. Okay. Season 3 actually has an extended intro in like half the episodes.
Well, I think I did notice at some point where I was like, this seems longer than I remember, so I might have seen a couple of that, so I'll try and take a look.
All right, so any other final thoughts on Season 2 before we wrap it? I guess we'll give sort of a grade-ish.
I'm curious how strong this is going to be compared to other things, because I felt like this is what I got, like this
is the Wonder Years you remember.
1 and 2 is kind of what I remember.
Yeah.
I'm
okay. Tim, you were both, I think, on kind of the B+ train for that first season.
I feel like because
stronger a little bit.
No, I feel like I'm still at B+.
Okay.
And that's because I'm struggling with Kevin's choices.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's just when I watch it, I get.
Try to remember, you were a kid too once.
I know.
Tim. Probably
and like I look back at my life and I'm just like, I'm an idiot. But it's hard to get on board. And root for him when he's making bad decisions. And you're like, come on, you were so smart in the Pottery episode. Why can't you just be that observant?
I'm going to
times?
Because of Christmas and because of the Pottery episode. I am going to stick with an A- on this one. I agree. The back and forth with Winnie and Becky is frustrating.
Yeah, that's all.
I agree that a couple of the montages we could maybe do without. So this is why I can't give it an A. But I think this is a very strong season. I think 2 and 3 are probably the best seasons. It's been a while since I've seen the later seasons, but...
I'll go with an A- because I think my issue with the romance arc is the fact that I binged it in like a day or a day and a half. And so it was just... I would be like, more of this, and I did. I fell asleep during an episode, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like this.
And then it comes back with the gossip.
And I was annoyed, and I was a little annoyed with the gossip and Winnie being so mad about some of the like, you said this, and like I was just like, ugh,
listen,
annoyed.
I forgot to take my clothes hanger out of my shirt. Yeah,
I've heard some things. People have said things about me. People say things about everybody. And one of our dear friends, who I'll mention off air, said like, "Oh, aren't you, pissed off? Doesn't that make you mad?" And I'm just like, like whatever.
Because I know at the time I was talk about me.
But at the time I was an adult. I was 35 at that time, not 13.
Yeah.
Well,
no, I mean
that's
it rings true.
It rings
so
true. So true.
It's just It's a little.
Giving people the silent treatment for things they've said back when I was 12 and 13, of course.
I think I would have enjoyed it more as a week, and then weeks in between, and like, oh, this is back, versus like,
you're right,
an hour and a half later, this is happening.
That's right.
So that
I think I would enjoy it more if I wasn't 38.
Yes,
years old.
you need to be. You need to get in that mindset that you were once 12, Tim, like we all were. Yeah. All right, well, that's it. That's season 2. Thank you all for joining. We'll hopefully do season 3 again pretty soon. The new series, by the way, I think is the 22nd of September for the new version of The Wonder Years, directed the pilot episode by Fred Savage. Obviously, I'll be reviewing that, on my TV news and reviews, but for you Wonder Years fans out there, that's when that airs. And we'll hopefully have season 3 up maybe before then. But yeah, thanks for joining, and thank you for watching. We'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for having us.
Bye.